and then give you a quick introduction. I'm sure a lot of people already know you. Dennis Yu is going to speak on Facebook ads here at the 12:30 time. Sujan Patel is going to join us on repurposing at 1 o'clock. Jeff Coyle is going to speak on semantic core at 1:30. Aaron Friedman on online reputation at 2 o'clock. Shayla Price speaking on content agents at 2:30. And Eric Munley is going to speak for SEO beginners at 3 o'clock, closing out at the 3:30 hour. Quick thank you, Digital Olympus, glad to be here. Alexandra, thank you very much for inviting me as a host. And Anastasia Isakova, hey, thank you very much for all your help getting to this point. So Dennis is going to speak on what you need to know about Facebook marketing. Certainly knows his stuff. He's the CTO of Blitz Metrics, recognized worldwide lecturer in Facebook marketing. He's been featured in, and here the list grows very long, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, LA Times, National Public Radio, TechCrunch, Fox News, CBS Evening News, as well as regularly contributing to Adweek for his Social Times column. He knows finance. He studied it at Southern Methodist and also at London School of Economics. So when Dennis tells you you can market on Facebook for $1 a day, he knows what he's talking about. As he trots the globe, he's held positions at Yahoo and American Airlines. He's a data and ad geek, and he claims that he can be found eating chicken wings or playing ultimate frisbee. So, Dennis, over to you, please.
Hey, Michael. We had chicken wings just yesterday in LA.
I saw all the food you had at Singapore, so you were eating very well.
Yeah, chicken wings there too. Chicken wings in Chicago. Let's see, last month, chicken wings in Bangkok, in Australia, in Hawaii, in San Francisco, in Salt Lake City, in Washington, D.C., Miami. Yep. I'm pretty sure no one here on this webinar has had more chicken wings than Logan and I in different cities in the last month. So, and hopefully that's also true for the amount of money that we've spent on Facebook ads. So we have something to share. You know, we can't share the chicken wings with you, but we can share some of this knowledge. Can you guys see my screen here? I've moved now to Facebook.
There you go.
Okay. So Logan and I are going to tag team. Logan runs our operations. And we want to show you, right, the title is what you need to know about Facebook marketing. What you actually need to know to be successful in Facebook marketing is everything except for Facebook marketing. Because it's become such a complex beast that the inputs that you have to put into the machine have increased. You used to be able to do some random things just like with SEO and get results. And we want to walk you through a few examples of what's working now. Stuff that is 180 from what we showed you 3 or 4 years ago. So a lot of people who think they know what they're doing, they may find things have changed. And they may also find, ironically, that some of the complexity that used to work for them is actually hurting them. For example, creating too many ads or the way they used to change bids. Facebook has absorbed so much of the complexity now that in some ways they've made things simpler. And we have prepared some documents for everyone here. We'd love to get your feedback. Chat back here in the webinar jam. You've probably heard of these 6 phases that we call the social amplification engine. And we'll talk about what that is in just a moment.
Dennis.
And yeah.
Please, do you want to go full screen on your presentation?
Well, it's not a presentation.
Okay.
So there you go. How about that? I'm only doing these things just to set the structure. Okay. Because when you understand the strategy related to Facebook ads, you're never going to get caught off guard. You're never going to get caught off guard with the new things with Messenger, with what you have to do with instant articles, the changes to lead ads, the check-in and offline measurement stuff, the click-to-call pieces if you're a local lead gen person. You're never going to get caught off guard with any of these items if you have these components in place. And that's why this talk is about what you need to know about Facebook marketing. So you're not jumping around from topic to topic. Oh, look, this one thing came out. Oh, look, this other thing happened. If you're like that, you're going to be so off balance, you will forget the fundamentals. And I see so many people that claim to be experts that they don't have the basics down because they've gotten lost in the minutia of Power Editor. And it's not like we don't know the API inside and out, right? We know that kind of stuff. But if you're not a professional Facebook ads course teacher, Just some stuff you just don't need to know, and you should be okay with that. Don't be afraid of, oh, there's this other stuff I don't know about. You know, don't freak out about that. So we want to talk first about these 6 phases, and we can start to layer in the things that have changed. So how does this fit into Facebook ads?
Definitely. So lots of people think we're these like Facebook wizards or something that come in and magically we take your bad accounts and we make them work and do well. But really that's not it at all. The reason we're able to help companies be successful is we follow a process, and that process is proven over time. And as Dennis said, it's these 6 phases. It's something that anybody here, if they put the time in and the resources in, could follow themselves. So we're going to go through each of these sequentially. Of course, each of them has more than just one thing to it, but they each break down into many structures and many goals that you can accomplish to help you move forward. So the first phase that we're going to talk about is plumbing, which basically plumbing is having your tracking in place, pixels, Facebook pixel, Google Tag Manager, these different things to enable you to see how people are interacting with your content, to see if they're on your website, on your page, so you can effectively actually target them. And it's something that surprisingly a lot of people don't have in place. And even more surprisingly, a lot of people don't even really know about it. They don't even know they don't have it in place. And it's one of the biggest things that can be the most powerful to when you actually understand the way it works and take the time to set it up properly and use it. It can just be night and day difference. So you're using your ad dollars the right way instead of wasting money on the same audiences and these different things.
See, plumbing is something that people like to skip over because it appears to be technical. For example, we've spoken at so many conferences, and I want to say maybe 20% of the people are using Google Tag Manager. And of those, the rest of the folks don't even know what Google Tag Manager is. Well, guess what? Google Analytics, Google AdWords, Facebook ads, Twitter ads, and then our buddy who runs LinkedIn's content marketing said in 6 weeks, LinkedIn's going to have a universal pixel as well. That's for tracking your audiences. And there's so many combinations of custom audiences. If your custom audiences aren't set properly, your lookalike audiences are not going to be well tuned, right? And you know, custom audiences are uploaded email lists, your web pixel, your app, check-in audiences. There's other kinds of audiences, phone numbers. There's even partial audiences, as you guys may have seen last month, where you can upload just name and first name, last name, or just city and last name, or any combinations of these fields, and it will match. We actually tried it. Put my name in there, right? First name, last name, that will match to a few people. But a lot of these things as custom audiences, they are the seed for your lookalikes. And if you are not having the majority of your targeting, you see here in phase 4, if the majority of your targeting is not driven by lookalikes, that means something's wrong with your funnel, or you don't have content at different stages, or you just flat out are using the wrong kind of targeting. We used to believe that interest targeting was the way to go all day long. And for some cases, you're still gonna do that. But you've probably noticed, if you've done a lot of testing in the last month or two, that the lookalikes outperform. And I used to say, I don't do lookalikes because those, you know, it's like 1 million people and I want to target really finely because, you know, we're really good at micro-targeting. But actually, Facebook is so smart with OCPM. You don't need to do those kinds of things anymore. And in fact, if you over-target, you can end up screwing yourself. Another example is that, you remember when you used to change bids and you didn't want to change bids too often? A year ago, this was a big deal. Even 6 months ago, this is a big deal because maybe you had an ad that was working. But then if you touched it, it reset the ad rank and then you had to start over again. It's like, I'm never going to, you know, the CTR's changed and just, it's like making a new ad. And you know, once something's working, the strategy a year ago is, all right, don't touch it. Once it's working, you know, just make another ad set. And now, because the system's smarter, you can actually make incremental bid adjustments. You can actually modify the ad set without resetting the ad rank associated with the particular creative, right? You know that just like Google has quality score, Facebook has relevance score. It's the same thing. It's the intersection of content and targeting, which is stages 3 and 4. Right? It's not the quality of the content. It's not how tight the targeting is. It's the intersection between the two. When I ran analytics at Yahoo, we called it a quality index. And that's the same thing. You're trying to see, is there alignment there? And what are the, if you were Google or Facebook and you're trying to calculate whether an advertiser was doing the right thing, you'd look at this and say, well, let's see, is the click-through rate high? In search, we would look at what the click-back rate was. If someone, right, we wanted everyone to find what they wanted on the first page of search results at Yahoo. If someone went to the second page, That means we didn't give them a good result. If someone clicked on a particular search result and clicked back, that means they didn't like what they got. And so we're going to penalize whoever was in the search rankings. Guess what? Facebook's the same thing. If someone clicks on your video or they come to your site and they go right back to Facebook, do you think Facebook doesn't notice that and take that into account? A lot of folks are worried about the clickjacking, clickbait kind of, content. You won't believe what happens next, BuzzFeed kind of things that Facebook's put in place. Just like the SEO people have been afraid of algo changes. I'm not afraid of that at all, because I know that that's where they're going. Because when you try to protect the user experience, you know that's going to work. And that means content and targeting at different points in the funnel. Your different points in the funnel align with phase 2, which is what your goals are, right? If you've got goals for audience, engagement, and conversion, you've got content that flows down these different paths. So imagine 3 rectangles that are stacked on top of one another. And then you've got different personas or avatars or user types, and then those are the lines. So you got a 3x3 box, right? If you have 3 kinds of user segments. If you follow these 6 phases, and by the way, we haven't gone into Facebook ads or Facebook stuff yet. We'll go there in a minute. Strategy is always more important, right? The direction is always more important than speed. I don't care how fast you optimize. I don't care how many years you've been doing it. I care about, are you doing the right thing? Because even if you're slow in doing the right thing, even if you don't know what the latest thing that Facebook just came out with, it's okay, because you're going in the right direction, right? Would you rather go 100 miles per hour in the wrong direction or 3 miles per hour in the right direction? And you must follow these 6 phases, and you need to do them across all digital channels. So let's talk about what is specific to Facebook for a second and what you need to have in place. So we say that strategy is goals, content, and targeting. Strategy is not somebody who is a keynote speaker waxing on about the future of robotics. Strategy is your specific combination of goals, content, and targeting, which is your funnel. If you've got your plumbing in place, phase 1, then you can track everything, your goals. You can't measure your goals unless you have this plumbing in place. And plumbing is not just your Google Analytics and native Facebook Analytics and the analytics you get out of the ad account. It's all of your audiences that are tied together. It's especially your custom audiences that then drive your lookalike audiences, which you can see right here in phase 4. You following me, Michael, and everyone here? Does this make sense?
Yeah, I'm not seeing questions, and I think everybody gets, the idea that you need to start out, as easy as it is to do, you need to start out with a map, and you're doing a great job of mapping this out for us.
People want to do these super advanced things because they want to skip the fundamentals. It's like the kids that want to go straight to the expert level and they get killed in the video game. We have spoken at, just on Facebook ads, over 500 conferences in the last 10 years. That's a lot of speaking. Believe me, you do not want to do what we do. It is not what it looks like. I know you might see the pictures on Facebook and, oh, that looks really glamorous. It is not what it looks like. What I can tell you is that when we have put on these advanced or expert Facebook classes, Larry Kim and I are doing a full day mastermind workshop in Las Vegas in 2 weeks on advanced Facebook and LinkedIn ads.
Yes.
Every time we have put on an actual advanced pro level Facebook ads workshop, we scare everyone out of the room. But the thing is, they want that. If you put up a workshop that says, oh, these are, the basic fundamental kinds of things, and people are like, no, I don't want that. I want only this super pro secret. Because, that's why we'll title these things as 10 Facebook hacks, as if somehow there's like some expert, secret, black ninja wearing mask kind of thing that's a shortcut. And it's the same thing for people that are trying to lose weight or whatever, the same kind of marketing. And we think that it's not very sexy. But we think that if you follow the fundamentals to all these weird sorts of tricks, Facebook does the work for you, right? Their platform at once is both the most sophisticated, yet the simplest to use. I didn't say complex, I said sophisticated. And when I look at Twitter and LinkedIn, I got to be careful because we got friends at all these places. And if we say too many bad things, they're not going to invite us to eat their free food. If we look at Twitter and LinkedIn, they have complicated ad systems, but they're actually not very sophisticated because you have to, the thing's so broken, you have to override the bid, you have to override the campaign structure. That's why, do you remember like 5 or 6 years ago, I read all these articles about why you shouldn't be boosting posts and why you need to micro-target. And people loved all the examples of how you could micro-target by where people work and weird sorts of combination audiences, which is now called detailed targeting. Used to be called flexible and/or targeting, the API. People love that kind of thing because it made them feel all pro. But do you want to look like a pro? I guess we'd have to ask the people here in this webinar, can you guys actually reply in here so we can see comments? I would love to know, are you here as an agency, or are you here doing this for your own business, or are you somebody who works inside a business? Because I know that you all know that there is something about trying to look good to the boss, whoever's money is being spent here, right? And then there's something about actually delivering the results. Now, obviously you should be focusing on the results, but hey, is that Sujin there? That's awesome. Then you should focus on the results, but we know that there's bosses that don't get it. You got to get content from other people, and there's all kinds of other nonsense that you have to deal with. It's called a tax, right? If you care about looking good, then remember some of the pro tips that we'll share. But if you care about the results, that's what we really want to talk about here, okay? So what Logan was saying before, I'm just going to go through these 6 phases real quick. Logan and I will together talk about them. And go back later and figure out which of these things you don't have, right? There's 61 pages in here. We're not going to go through the whole thing. Plumbing is tying all your audiences together, and it goes a lot deeper than a lot of folks might think. You can actually fire a pixel conditionally on whether they have been on the page for 20 seconds, if they've come back the second time, if they have a certain, they have an iPhone, right? A lot of this stuff you can determine through Facebook's native targeting, but a lot of it you can also do here at the lower level. So the lower the level you can set up this kind of tracking, the more powerful it's going to be. For example, we believe it's smarter to set up saved audiences that have your combination targets in them than it is to try to make those, to have that logic of combo targeting inside the ad set itself, right? Because then it becomes reusable. The lower the level you can solve the problem, the more powerful it becomes. If you've got your plumbing set up properly, and it's not just the analytics, because it's got to tie to your tag management, it's got to tie to your other forms of analytics, and it's got to tie to your ad accounts. Do you know if your numbers are tying across all of these? Because 100% of the clients that we work with, and it's not a pitch, we're not trying to pitch you, we're actually giving you how we do this stuff so you can go pitch someone else. 100% of the time when we see this, their numbers don't tie. The number of conversions that are tracked in whatever their e-commerce system is, maybe it's Shopify, maybe they got events that are firing in Google Analytics, maybe they're looking at conversions in AdWords or Facebook or whatever, the numbers don't tie. And there's dumb things that don't work. And then if you're in a bigger company, the big boss says, hey, how come the numbers don't tie? Oh, well, part of it's the pixel didn't fire, or whatever, or oh, Facebook overcounts, or there's fraud, they give us credit back, or that's not it. It's usually dumb things like you don't have site-wide SSL. And that creates impacts later in your Facebook ads campaign. If you have your plumbing, I'm going through this quickly, and your goals, content, and targeting set up properly, then the actual making of the Facebook ads, stage 5, amplification, and the optimization, phase 6, is child's play, right? If you get the strategy right, goals, content, and targeting, and the plumbing right, then you don't have to resort to weird gymnastics in screwing with your ads. And very rarely do you need to go into Power Editor. Power Editor is when you want to do bulk campaigns, and there's certain features in Power Editor that you just can't otherwise get. And if you want to geek out and say you use Power Editor, good for you. Or maybe if you got a Power Editor question, that's great. Put it in the comments, we'll answer it. But I believe that 95% of people don't need to touch Power Editor because they don't have the campaign sophistication necessary to do a lot of child, master and slave and parent-child kind of campaigns. And the same is true for Google. Why would you use AdWords Editor unless you had sufficient sophistication? If you're not spending more than, say, 20 grand per day and covering multiple territories and products, I really don't think you need that. And no, the other people that want to be Facebook geeks like to say that, oh, you need Power Editor, and I only do things in Power Editor. Well, I care about results. I could care less about whether it's Power Editor. If you really want to geek out, let's talk about the API. The API is many steps more powerful than Power Editor. Power Editor is built on the API. My buddy Brian Rosenthal, he built Power Editor at my suggestion. I know Power Editor. Anyway, don't get me mad. So plumbing, goals, content. If you're an agency, I can pretty much guarantee you the number one problem you have with Facebook ads is that the content sucks. Oh, we're not getting conversions and all that, and they try to blame you. Well, it's because you don't have the content. And we know that video is where it's at. I want to show you an example. This is our friend who we hung out with yesterday. We were on TV. Kind of cool, huh? And it's Mark Black.
Yeah, so Mark, he lives in the LA area. He used to actually, we partner with him quite a bit. He believes in our principles. He's got his plumbing in place, these different things. And he started to use it to great effect because he has this TV show. He hosts his Business Rock Stars, and they have all this great content. And what are you going to do with that content? You're interviewing these people, Ty Lopez, guys from Shark Tank, these different celebrities that people have seen on TV, and you're just sitting on all this content. Well, Mark Black has used our principles, the 6 phases, to create his own sequences, his own strategy that he can use on any channel. And he's used it to great effect to be able to make the most of his content. Dennis will go a little bit more into it. He's used video, these different things, but all the things we were talking about, we have just dozens and dozens and hundreds of case studies of people that actually, a lot of people are afraid to take action. These things sound complex. We have guides for all these that break it down if you're interested. If you take action on these things, you'll find that if you try it, you'll see that it works. And we've just got evidence of it working for whatever your goal is, whether your goal is to get a job or to grow your business. If you do these 6 phases and you follow these steps, then you can be successful. And with that, I'll turn it back to Dennis to talk more about Mark Black and how he's done it specifically.
Remember, we said 6 phases. Hopefully drill this thing into your head. Plumbing, goals, content is the one you're going to spend the most time on. The other ones are sort of just get it done and then you're in place, right? Once your plumbing's done, it's pretty much there. Content is where people fall down. And the most powerful content we said is video. This guy, he doesn't really write a lot of articles. He doesn't do many blog posts, maybe a few per year. But what this guy does is he gets on his balcony, which is really nice in Long Beach. You can see that he does or whatever. And it's nice, and he'll talk about something motivational. This guy is the adults, and he's put up these videos. I'll just go back up to these other ones. He's got tons of these videos. So this is Ty Lopez. You may have heard of him. He's one of these internet celebrity people with sports cars, and I think he's making several $million a month. It's pretty crazy. So Mark went to Ty's mansion in Beverly Hills and filmed an interview inside the garage where he's got the Lamborghinis and all that kind of stuff, right? And he's interviewed all these other people, Damon John, Tony Robbins, all these sorts of people. And the key is that he's taking these videos in short and long form. He'll post the long form piece usually on the site, but sometimes we've been experimenting here. The thing that's working are these 35 and 40, 30-second kind of snippets to get their attention. And when we find we post videos that are 30 seconds and we boost them, we get a 70% view through rate. That means of the people who see it, they actually stop and they watch for 3 or more seconds. You may have seen the controversy a couple days ago on supposedly Facebook's overstating video views. That's only in the average length of the view because it's factoring in those views that are, well, non-views that are less than 3 seconds. So what's going on here is that we will amplify this first to the audiences of the people that are obviously going to like this. So if there's an interview with Tony Robbins, guess who we're going to amplify this thing to? Tony Robbins fans. Yeah, that's a really big audience. That's millions of people. I would have said 3 years ago, don't do that. But because Facebook's so smart about driving engagement, because they use video view metrics, how long people stay and all this to determine quality, it's actually okay. And we will do the $1 a day strategy, which you've probably heard of, and actually extend it into a layered approach, because we might spend $10 a day to get some momentum so this thing's got a lot of views. Now, because we are using Business Manager, you can see this business.facebook. We can see the stats here. The dark orange means we paid for it. It got only 10,000 organic. And in fact, off of these 14,000 fans, we probably would have gotten only 1,500 to 2,000. And so this extra 60,000 in paid drove us an extra 8,000 in organic. I don't know if you guys follow that. What I'm saying is when you guys use paid the right way, it actually gives you more organic on an ongoing basis. We might spend a few $100s per post. I'll explain the layered approach in just a moment, and generate $5,000 to $10,000 of revenue for each of these. The revenue could be some kind of ebook, because maybe at the end of the interview with Damon John, together they say, oh yeah, put in your email and I'll give you the 7 tips that entrepreneurs need to know on how to not get screwed on Shark Tank, or whatever it is, some kind of lead magnet, right? And so this consistently is working and it builds audience. Now you may notice, right, you've got all these things with social proof. Sometimes we'll boost them and sometimes we don't. You see how here we didn't boost this one where he's with Damon John? The reach was only 439, right? If we did want to boost it, who might we boost it to? And this is the key, right? Because you got to use large and small audiences. When you're trying to drive inception at the top of the funnel, which is influencing the influencers, most people think of the funnel as going really big at the top to really small at the bottom, right? Like this upside down pyramid. It's actually the other way around. So at the top of the funnel, people are going to disagree with me, but you can disagree all you want. Just go ahead and try. You'll see this is true. Because things have changed, okay? At the top of the funnel, we don't have enough money to hit the world. We're little entrepreneurs, let's just say. I mean, some of these folks aren't, but let's just, the majority of the people on these kinds of webinars don't have a ton of money. There's all kinds of constraints. I know you have constraints. That's what we hear all day long. Now look at this. Media Inception, talk show, Ellen. These are people who work at, you see this employer targeting? I'm surprised how many people don't use this yet. This is pure gold. People who work at Ellen and all these different combinations of Ellen, right? Look at this one here. I'll just go down a few. I like to look at these mega audiences. We've got all these. Okay, here it is. Mega. Oh, yeah. This is what we named them. Oh, here's Ultimate. Why is it Mega and Ultimate? What's the difference between these two? Somebody was making stuff and didn't name it properly. Okay, so look at this. People who work at Time and Business Insider, New York Daily News, and MSNBC, and Newsweek, Wall Street Journal, right? People who work at these places, this is a small audience. And we might come in, see, there's only, well, this is a mega audience, so it's 200,000. But you could target just the 100 people that work at Ellen. And what happens is when you've got social proof of you interviewing Damon John, I'm not saying you got to interview Damon John, okay? Don't think like, oh, that doesn't apply to me because I'm not a TV show and I don't have hair like this and I don't look like this. I'm not saying that, okay? Any kind of information that you have that's to your target customer is going to be sexy and interesting to that audience. If you're an industrial pipe manufacturer and you interview someone who's a pro in industrial pipe manufacturing, I don't really care about that, but the other people in that industry, they might find that's really sexy. They find that's really cool, okay? Now you have to think like a B2B person. So you can see every time he interviews one of these people, here's Joe Polish, he spoke at Social Media Marketing World. Obviously, you're going to re-amplify to those different audiences. You're going to re-amplify to, oh yeah, this is funny. Facebook employees to get me verified. All right, I hope you didn't see that. So all right, you guys saw it. Yeah, so we're getting him verified. And guess what? We've gotten a few people with the blue check mark. I got the blue check mark. It doesn't really mean anything, but some people think it's important, so we have to do that, right? So if for them, for their boss, because they're the head of social media for some big company and they need to have it. They see I got a blue check mark. I probably get 5 people a day hit me up. Hey, can you get me a blue check mark? No, I don't work at Facebook. But when you put out high authority content and then you amplify to people who work at Facebook in Menlo Park, you got to choose in Menlo Park because there's a bunch of 18-year-old kids that say they work at Facebook, just like the kids that say they're married and that they actually aren't, or what. You got to be careful about that, right? So when you do this, you're more. Oh, by the way, it works on Twitter too. You can target the people that work at Twitter, and then if you want to get the Twitter badge, like if you look at me, I've got the Twitter badge, I've got the Facebook badge. Actually, I don't want to go any further. Then you're going to think I'm boasting. So, see.
So Dennis, if I can just jump in 1 second here. You're at the 30-minute mark, and you're on your 3rd step of your process. So, we don't want to step on you, John, too much. If you can get to the next steps and kind of wrap it up, that would be great.
The content's the most important part. Look, if you've got the content right, all the other pieces are going to fit. Same thing, it's sequential, plumbing, goals, content, and targeting, right? There's all different ways of creating content at scale. Because if you have the goals content and then the targeting is based on the content that you create, I firmly believe you cannot set targeting until you have content because you don't know which audiences are ready. You have to have content out there to figure out what's working. It's easy to set up lots and lots of saved audience. It's easy to create custom audiences, but if you don't have enough traffic, there's no point. People love jumping straight to this targeting because it's sexy. I believe that is a waste of time, and you should focus way more time on creating content. You can always multiply out to other targets. Then the actual ad creation is very easy because if you have these things set up, then you're doing at the top of the funnel these small audiences. Then you move to core audiences, which is what you think are custom audiences, but they're not. It's core to Facebook. And then you move to things like lookalikes, right? Which are an extension, or you can do combinations of saved audiences of lookalikes and income and geography, whatever kind of targeting you have. So audience is smallest. You should have the smallest audiences here because you're micro targeting, because when you influence the influencer, that's how you get more reach. Engagement, you're going to go slightly larger because you're trying to build custom audiences. And then to extend conversion, you actually are going to rely upon a combination of custom audiences and lookalikes. So your funnel's actually inverse. It gets bigger towards the bottom, which I know this funnel is a traditional funnel because that's what we have to do to get the concept across. But our funnels are actually the other way around. They're smaller at the top. And then the optimization side is just coming in and tweaking the thing. How are you going to decide what things to turn on and off? When do you have content that burns out versus you need to create more combinations? How do you make changes within the team because other people, they need to tweak the CMS, you have a new shopping cart, you have this event calendar, and this is where the structure of the team comes into place. Your success to create ongoing results with Facebook is less your knowledge of Facebook, latest geek, whatever things, and it's more about how strong you are as an operator, because the number of dependencies that you have are only going to increase over time. And I promise you that this is the case. Why? Look at this cheat sheet that covers all the things that we just talked about. These are all the things that are necessary at the minimum to be successful at Facebook ads. How many of them are actually directly within your control, within the ads manager or what have you? Increasingly, these things are needing inputs. Like we said, the machine, Facebook's getting smarter. The machine needs more inputs from goals, content, and targeting, which unless you're the business owner, you need this from other people. You need your customers to give you content. You need to create video. You need to know if one of our friends they replace windows and another dude replaces garage doors. How sexy is that? Who knows how they got into that business? But now every time their technicians go out and replace the garage door, they pull out the phone and when they've done it, the customer's happy right then on the spot. Hey, John, would you mind telling us what you think about your new garage door, right? And that's what you want. If you don't build that into your process to collect this kind of content, it doesn't matter if you hire whoever on making your ads. Hire me on your ads, doesn't matter. I'm going to suck because you have to have a process to collect this content. So think about your strategy, your goals, content, and targeting. Make sure you have your plumbing first, otherwise you're blind. I don't care how good of a car racing driver you are. If you're blind, I'm going to still beat you, right? Plumbing, goals, content, and targeting, then go into these things that appear to be sexy with amplification and optimization. That's what you need to know on Facebook marketing.
It's awesome. Just the targeting alone is the part that excites me the most. The idea that you have some targeting up front when you're talking about your personas and figuring out who you're talking to, building up your content so you know what you're saying to them, figuring out just how to get that in their faces. That targeting stuff is awesome. I look forward to hearing you again, maybe hearing in more in depth at the tail end about amplification and optimization, because it's been a kind of a tradition of Facebook marketing that the ad campaigns as they're set up can fatigue quickly. Clearly, you're talking up front about building a lot of metrics, dashboards about figuring out how well they're working, so you can see when you've kind of burned out a particular audience and maybe you need to move to a lookalike or something. Just any input about that, about what you're keeping an eye on and what your next step kind of is.
If you have everything set up properly, you don't need to go in and try to jimmy rig the thing. And when we come in and see people with their screwed up Facebook ad campaigns, they think that what they need is Facebook ads magic. And I can tell you 99% of the time, they've got something wrong in their strategy and something screwed up in their tracking. And that's the case. And I've been doing this for a long time, and that is almost always the case. It is not with your Facebook ads.
But your term of campaign, how long would you be hammering on a particular audience? You're changing up how soon?
It depends on what stage in the funnel it's at. Most of your campaigns should be evergreen, because if you've got a funnel that's based on audience engagement conversion that's triggered by who they are, by something they've done, like you've just collected their email, you're going to have a series of things that you're going to send them. Just like with email, just like with custom, remarketing. Campaigns are organized by time. Like this is my Christmas campaign, and this is my fall sale, and this is my Labor Day, whatever. Then your stuff's going to burn out in a couple weeks probably, depending on how strong those lookalike audiences are, subject to the size. You're always limited by audience or budget, right? That's always the case. So most people, they ask this question like, oh, how long should I run my campaigns? And they would love an answer like, oh, you should run it for 2 weeks. No, the harder you run it, the faster you burn out. Because what matters is how quickly you run through that audience, right? Because it's how much volume you run through. If you can exhaust an audience in one day. You can. We've literally run clients where we'll spend $600,000 in one day. Yeah, how long do you think you can keep that up? One day, Cyber Monday, right? That's about it. But if you want to test and spend $10 a day against an audience that's a million in size, you can last forever because that audience replenishes faster than your ability to spend. So never ask the question, how long should it take? If I have to force an answer, I'll say 1 week because at least it gets over the seasonality because people behave differently on the weekends versus whatever. But
no, let's not force that answer. I think your original answer is perfect because if you go to the front end of the process and you build up your plumbing right, you're going to have a consistent flow of new audience entering, your advertising campaigns. And isn't it that what it's all about? You're talking about continuing to nurture people down the, kind of like the old-fashioned idea of drip marketing, but now in Facebook. So, that's great stuff. I want to say on behalf of the audience and everybody here at Digital Olympics, we're kind of running over. I know this was an issue for the session that preceded us. So if you have any last words for the audience, please, let's hear it. And thanks for your time.
Thanks, guys. And if you want to learn more, go to blitzmetrics.com. We answer your questions. Dennis at blitzmetrics.com, Logan at blitzmetrics.com.
Shoot us an email.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Dennis. Okay, so over to Sujan. Sujan, how you doing?
Good. That was an awesome presentation, Dennis, and I can't tell you how happy I was to hear content, because that's exactly what I am going to talk about today.
That's great. So allow me just 1 minute here, Sujan, to make an introduction. Yeah, Dennis always does a great job. The information is always, chock-a-block. There's lots and lots of stuff to learn, and he spells it out in a great process with the charts and all. So encourage people to get in touch with Dennis, find out more, get your hands on some pieces even of the presentation. In the meantime, Sujan's joining us. He's going to talk about the complete guide to repurposing content, and he's going to do the complete guide in 25 minutes or less. Good for you, Sujan. Go for it. You're co-founder of Web Profits, run a marketing agency. You fuel growth by helping companies leverage the latest and greatest strategies. So we want to come at this from the strategy level. 13 plus years of internet marketing experience, and you've led the digital strategy, in case people don't know, for Salesforce and Mint and Intuit and other Fortune 500 companies. So clearly you have stature in the community. I heard a webinar you did recently, and you were talking about your 5-step process that made you such a rigorous blogger, that you have this discipline and you do this every single day. And hats off to you. That's great stuff. You share everything you know accordingly on your YouTube channel, and then we're encouraging listeners to go and read the blog if you haven't already discovered sujanpatel.com. So Sujan, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. I got a little bit of echo, but I will kind of turn my sound down. All right, so I'm just sharing my screen here. Cool. Can everyone see my screen?
We can see it now.
Okay, perfect. So as you mentioned, I'm going to talk about how to repurpose content. This is assuming you have some good content, like Dennis said. That's the biggest problem, I think, in the space. So let's assume you have some great content out there. And I want to talk about really today how to maximize and stretch the use of that content. A lot of what I do is I create a ton of content, and I actually continue to leverage it. Actually, when I write a blog post, that is actually the first time I use content. And if it does well, I'll expand it. I'll expand the blog post. I might create videos. I might create a slide share. Sometimes they turn into webinars, just like this. This actual content and this concept of this article, of this webinar, was proven out with an article. I'll try to take it all the way out to a speaking engagement and kind of leverage this as far as I can go. It's updated, changed, and adjusted to the network I am publishing and promoting on. It's adjusted to the audience. So, it's definitely improved as it goes on, but it most of the time starts off as a blog post. So I want to jump into what you're going to learn today. First and foremost, and I will go fast here, so I apologize for talking so quickly, but I am generally, this is the pace I talk at. So just because I love what I do, I talk pretty fast. We're going to talk about, first and foremost, rebranding some of your flops. So if your content doesn't work, don't worry. It's not over. You can still use it. We're going to talk about repurposing content in general, and then syndication and gaining exposure, meaning how to take content you've written on for your blog and distribute it further. So let's jump into straight to this. You've heard a lot about me. I'm a co-founder of Web Profits, but I also have a few of my own SaaS companies, Content Marketer IO, Narrow, and Q.co. We practice what we preach. We pick exactly this concept. In fact, my companies are the testing bed and testing ground for a lot of these strategies. And if they work, we write about them. We scale them. We apply it to our agency side. So pretty interesting concept. Keeps me really, really busy. But what I want to talk about is realistically, some of your best content is behind you, and that's okay. It's okay. Sometimes they worked, sometimes they didn't. But the old content you produce doesn't necessarily mean because it's a year old, 2 years old, it's done for. No. Continue to maximize and leverage it, and frankly, reuse it. So first and foremost, not all of the content you produce or going to produce is going to be effective. A lot of it will fail. In fact, what I found is most of it fails. It's only a handful of articles that actually works well. So what I like to do is take my failed concepts, my flopped content, and actually repurpose it. There's lots of different reasons content fails. Maybe it's bad timing. Recently, I published an article that did horrible, and it was because I published it a little too early. It was on holiday kind of Q4. Well, it's Q3. Nobody cares about the holidays until probably October or late September. I just published it maybe 3 weeks too early, and it failed. I also published an article on Kanye West recently. Well, actually, it's being queued, and I guarantee it's going to fail because that article should have been released when Kanye released his album because it was hyper relevant. Unless Kanye does something crazy, stupid, or awesome, however you want to look at it, that article is not going to be that relevant. At the time I thought of it, it was, but that's okay. Again, that's crazy, and I can bring it back to life then. So don't think that because it did not work, it cannot work. So what I like to do when content fails and I want to go bring it back to life is, first and foremost, I enhance the content. What does that mean? Well, one, sometimes just publishing it again is all you need. Maybe changing the header image, the main image, a few of the images. What I use initially is usually like stock photos. If content works, I'll put it in more time. But what that means is I'll go to Canva or Snappa.io, get some images, customize them, maybe add some text overlays. I might even change the title up a bit. I always do a bit of Facebook ads, maybe $5, $10. I usually just advertise on the mobile audience network or remarket to my list, or a lookalike audience to my custom audience. And why I do this is to help me get better at titles. And a title, to be honest, can make or break your content. In fact, Upworthy does 25 titles. They create 25 titles for every article they create. This might not be new news, but I guarantee you, you're not implementing it. So make sure you brainstorm titles better, and the second time around, update the title, shorten it up. update the images, and that alone can help you enhance and just bring it back to life.
That's great.
The other
Sue,
thing is,
can I jump in for one? I just had a question.
yes,
So, titles, headlines, clearly, you know, the first encounter of somebody with your content, very, very important. Are you in the custom of testing them in the way that, you know, some of these viral publishers do?
I don't go as far as what these publishers do, because I don't have the reach of their that they do, and I also don't have enough traffic. So it's important to know like your limitations. But what I do is I do test. I don't like there's plugins for WordPress that you can use to A/B test titles. That's fine. I know HubSpot does a lot of this, and there's a couple of plugins I will post on Twitter a little later. I don't know the names off the top of my head, but you could do that way.
That kind of thing. That's awesome. So a way of automating the testing. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. But one more thing is that test on Facebook ads is a way to test your audience, but not with the content. A lot of times when the headline is directly above the content itself, it won't get the attention. The way I think the true way to test it is comparing the click-through rate. So you can't obviously have a click-through rate measurement if the article is already loaded. So that's why I like Facebook ads. And again, it just helps you get sharper at it and creating more punchy things people create. So yeah.
And an expensive way of doing it. That's great. Thanks for that tip. Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. So the other thing, and what causes content to fail a lot of times is the lack of promotion, or maybe your promotion didn't work. So what I like to do, again, when I enhance the article or bring it back to life, is I'll add some embeddable tweets. I'll even add some click to tweets. Sometimes I go as far as adding like Instagram images or grabbing quotes from influencers. But adding the click to tweet functionality can just help you squeeze a little bit more life out of the content. And it frankly doesn't require that much work. It's a pretty straightforward thing. And the next time around, if you create content, add these things up front to the article. In fact, there's an article I published a few times, and or not a few times, I published a year ago, which completely failed. I didn't do anything except add some click to tweet, and I sent it out to my email list again. And no one shared the actual article through the share buttons. They all used the first click to tweet because it was a super punchy quote that kind of got under the skin of people. So, under the skin, and it was relatable. So, that a click to tweet can be very, very powerful. When you are republishing content, just be careful if you're distributing it on other sites. You can run into some really big duplicate content issues. I know sites like Kissmetrics and companies syndicate to business community, even entrepreneur.com, Inc., CNN Money. I know Mint does syndications to CNN Money and a few other places. And what ends up happening is just duplicate content issues. So be careful. Use the rel canonical tag. In fact, if you're using the Sumo Me plugin, I learned this neat trick. Sumo Me, when you use the rel canonical tag, it will actually grab the share count from your original article or attribute the share count to the original